The news on youth employment is starting to look a bit better. The International Labour Organization just released the 2015 Global Employment Trends for Youth. This report shows that global unemployment numbers for 15 to 24-year-olds have dropped by 3.3 million since the peak of the economic crisis in 2009, to a total of 73.3 million unemployed young people around the world in 2014. And the youth unemployment rate has been holding steady at 13% since 2012.
Hold on. I live in Italy and I've been looking for a job as a chemist for 3 years now. How can they say things are getting better when all I can find is a temp job selling clothes?
But the report says exactly this. The recovery is not universal. In 2/3 of European countries, the youth unemployment rate is still over 20%. And worse, more than 1 in 3 unemployed youth has been looking for a job for longer than 1 year.
Don't forget about us in Middle East and North Africa. Youth unemployment rate here has been close to 30% for decades, with no sign that things will improve. For young women in particular, you can basically forget about finding a job, even though now we are as educated as young men, if not more so. Yet our unemployment rate is almost 50%.
I always find it strange when this report talk about sub-Saharan African having low youth unemployment rates. It's deceiving since so many of us don't feel like we are working. None of my friends has a regular job. We work a few hours here and there whenever we can.
What you've just described is an issue of underemployment, or worse, working poverty, which is when the income from work is not enough to lift a family out of poverty. The report finds that more than 1/3 of working youth in developing countries are living on less than $2 a day. 3 in 4 young workers in low-income countries have what the report calls an irregular job, and 9 in 10 work in the informal economy. None of this qualifies as decent work.
And the needs, youth neither in employment nor education or training? This is a topic which is a concern in my country, Guatemala.
And it will be in other countries as well, since it's been announced as a target of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. This is important since it allows us to focus attention on the youth who are the most vulnerable, those most likely to leave school early and to remain without a job.
What about solutions? What does the ILO recommend? The report talks about how staying in education gives young people a better chance of getting a decent job.
And we should acknowledge that progress is being made in getting more young people into school around the world and keeping them in school for longer. This is a positive trend.
But then there's a chart that shows how youth with university degrees in my region, Asia, are 3 times more likely to be unemployed than those without one. Isn't that a contradiction?
Well, we should bear in mind that the university graduate is not going to settle for just any job. In a way, then, it's normal that they spend longer looking. And there's no denying that they have a much better chance of getting a job with a written contract in the formal sector and maybe even a decent wage. So strengthening the investment in education and training for today's children and tomorrow's workers remains crucial. Strategies that help promote job creation will be key, as are targeted interventions that help get young people into work. These can include job search assistance, apprenticeships, subsidies to employers, and training programs. The international community is paying close attention to youth employment. In fact, the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda provides us with a clear course of action to work with governments and the social partners on designing better policies and programs to address all of the issues that you've raised here.